Welcome back to Joy of the Hang, where we explore the power of connection with ourselves, with others, and with something greater. I'm your host, Sharon Stevenson, and today we're diving into a conversation that bridges science, spirit, and soul. My guest, Dr. Robin Perry Braun, holds a PhD in Integrative Medicine, a master's in psychology, and is an ordained minister. For more than 30 years, she's been on a quest to help people heal on every level: body, mind, and spirit. She's developed her own certified modality, now practiced around the world, and trains others to help clients release blocks to joy, purpose, and peace. Dr. Robin is the author of several transformative books, including Thrive, Applying Biblical and Quantum Energy Principles to Live a Transformed Life, and Living Like a Son. And she leads a nonprofit ministry, Thrive Holistic Healing Ministries, that funds therapy for survivors of trafficking and trauma. Today, we're talking about what it really means to live a thriving life, one where you are aligned, unblocked, and open to the full flow of joy and destiny. Welcome, Dr. Robin.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm excited to get into this talk. You
And
are
just
speaking my language.
good. I'll start out by saying color matters.
Yes.
We need all the colors of the spectrum. So if people are going, wow, that's a lot of color. My question is, but doesn't it make you happy?
It
Don't
does, and it's so funny you say that because I'm never in black and white.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, so my art behind me is very intentional.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's really cool. So what is it? Tell me why is it intentional? Just because you love the colors or what?
Well, turquoise is probably my favorite color, but so our energy centers, our 7 energy centers all align with the frequency of specific colors, and they're the colors of the rainbow. So a healthy body needs all the spectrum of light to stay in harmony. And in America, especially, we tend to lean towards blacks and beiges and all that. And truly, most people do not get enough color in their daily energy field. So I feel like so blue would have to do with your voice or your throat energy center. Green is your heart. And yellow has to do with your self-esteem and your courage and your confidence. And so each one actually, from color therapy as a science, it aligns with different regions of your body that have to do with emotions and organs of the body. And then white has all the color spectrum in them, where black lacks the color spectrum. And so I was drawn to color before I knew all this science stuff, but I would be like, why do I need yellow? I never liked yellow. Why is yellow so important? Suddenly I want yellow in my life. Turquoise, I want turquoise. And so like when I get dressed every morning, I kind of go, what color feels right today? But I have very much a science in the back of my head of that there's either something I need in my energy field with that color or something the other person I'm going to be with needs. And pink is in the, crown and pineal or brow energy center spectrum. And so they have to do with intuition, with connection to God, how connection to other people. So I just, I kind of go, what color feels right to wear? And it's fun. It's fun. My kids are all like kind of beigey across the board. And they're like, oh, here comes mom with all her colors. And I'm like, yeah, but I have a really, really balanced spectrum of in my energy fields.
That I've never heard of that color therapy. For our listeners that aren't watching us on YouTube, I just want to explain. So the artwork that I'm looking at has yellows and turquoise and little brown and white, right? And
Yeah, and some red. Yeah, it's actually
and
red.
some
Yeah,
red. Yeah, okay. And it's like spirals and it's very abstract.
yeah.
And then Dr. Robin is wearing a hot pink top. Yeah, look very bright and fun, colorful. And today,
Yep.
unfortunately, I have black and white on, which is so unlike me. I'm normally in hot pink, so that's funny.
But your glasses are blue, and those are beautiful.
My glasses are blue. That's my fun. And actually, if you can't see my pants, but if you saw my pants, I have very bright, they're floral. So they're like a Hawaiian tropical print.
There you
So
go. There you go. Okay.
on the bottom half. Yeah.
And, I think just because we're spontaneously talking about this, I think that people need to understand that they very often, if they're remotely connect to their intuition, will be drawn to a color they need. They're out of harmony somewhere. We're communicating energetically 24/7, both to other people and to our own selves. And so, I learned, wow, I just really feel drawn to amethyst. Like I need to buy an amethyst ring or something amethyst. And then after a while I go, okay, like I'm done, or I got my fix. And then the
Yeah.
next may come up. So I just really encourage people not to second guess, a color, something you're drawn to. I encourage people to go out and buy fresh flowers of multicolors and keep them in their home. Because even if their home is not decorated in lots of color, just having the accent of color, can really, again, bring harmony to your biofield. And what I find is so many health issues can also be, and, the Indian term is chakra, but they're really just energy fields, and they are science. I can see them with a certain camera. They're a spectrum of color. And so they very much have to do with emotions and organs in the body. And a lot of health issues can be connected to blocked energy fields that we may have blocked from emotions, or just literally too from an absence of having that frequency in our biofield for enough. So color therapy is very scientific in its basis, and it's easy to research. You can get on Chat GPT or Google it and look at color therapy. It's all about frequencies.
That's fascinating. And I've always been fascinated by energy work. So let's just dive in. I have a list of questions and we may or may not get to them, but I do have. So I understand that there's chakras in the body and there's 7, correct? And they are what? What are they?
Well, chakra means wheel. So essentially, if you could see them the way we're designed, the human biofield is what's called a torus or a toroidal field, which looks like a donut. So energy flows out and comes back through almost in a donut shape. It's the way energy flows. Okay. It's TORUS or TOROIDAL, toroidal. And so these energy centers in our body have that flow. And if something's blocking them or kind of has their frequency off, because everything can be measured by very distinct frequencies, then there's going to be effects that has on the organs, on the emotions, on the bones, just on the overall feeling or health. And so, like, let's say, my adrenals are in a certain region of my body. And if the frequency of that area of my body is out of harmony, I might experience some adrenal fatigue. Now, there's other things that can cause adrenal fatigue: malnutrition, hormonal imbalance, cortisol, or just too much stress, right? We're in high fight or flight all the time, creates adrenal fatigue. But also, it's all connected. The body's so fascinating when you start looking at it too from a holistic, but also a frequency standpoint, because it makes a lot of sense how everything is interconnected.
Yeah, it does. And how can, like, if you went to an energy healer or energy worker, how exactly are they moving the energy around to make?
So I use a process that's very well known. It's across the world. It's called muscle response testing. And essentially it works like a lie detector test. So your subconscious is a supercomputer. It knows everything. It knows everything about your body. It's information and it's frequency. So it's just like computers are all zeros and ones, and that doesn't make sense, but it's the same way. It's information. It's stored in our subconscious, and it goes back through conception to everything in your life. You actually remember everything that's ever been said to you, that you said, that's been implied. You've also communicated emotionally your whole life, whether you recognize it or not, because everything has a measurable frequency. And so it's stored in there. We just don't have access to that information. It's not something we can just daily, because it's trillions and gazillions of bytes of data. So what muscle response testing is, it works like a lie detector test where we can ask the subconscious supercomputer basically yes and no questions, getting a muscle response of a strong or a weak response. And it's the same concept as a lie detector test. When we make a statement that's true or there's a resonance with truth, we get a certain response on the paper. And when there's a disresonance with truth, we get a different response. And the same can correlate to a strength or a muscle resistance. So lots of chiropractors practice it, nutritionists practice it, but we're also able to do it virtually or remotely because we are connected. And so I can essentially lie detector test any statement about you and your life by muscle testing myself for you. And that's called the law of entanglement in quantum physics. So many, many, many alternative practitioners work virtually or remotely because we get the same accuracy. As a matter of fact, if you were sitting in the room, because I have to ask a ton of questions using muscle testing, I'm not going to be pushing down your arm, which is traditional way of doing it the whole time, because your arm will get tired and we'll lose consistency. So that's how we determine. In my process, we're looking for root causes. What is the root cause of this issue, right? And so holistically, we're looking at the body as like a messy cherry pie. You try to cut a piece, juice runs everywhere. It's not this clean cut body, soul, spirit like we think it is. So if
Right.
you're having, say, shoulder pain or neck pain, I can ask your body based on my toolbox, what's causing it? When did the cause start? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it toxins? Is it malnutrition? Is it an injury? And you'd be surprised how so many things could be all of those and cumulatively leading to body pain. The body is a metaphor, and it's called New German Science that talks about the science behind that. It's very complicated, but ultimately, what do your shoulders represent? What does your neck represent? Or like I said earlier about energy centers, I have neck pain, and I find out my client is being just demeaned at work by their boss, and they're not speaking up or being assertive. They're not using their voice. So their throat energy center is shut down, and that's creating pain in their neck because that's the region of the body their voices, right? So as you do this, as I've created this toolbox and learned as I went, your teeth have meridians connecting to every part of your body. And so they're reciprocal. If I have a tooth, something done on a tooth, it can affect that body part. The body is so fascinating, and we just don't know what we don't know. But as I've developed this process and learned and grown, the accumulation of so many factors that are unique to that individual to create that problem, there's no cookie cutter, pat answers. So what's great about these types of processes is I'm actually asking your subconscious to tell me exactly what it is because it knows everything. It's way smarter than me. And then we can also muscle test the body for what is the remedy that's going to bring those adrenals back up to the right harmony. Is it a supplement? Is it emotional? Is it a combination? Is it reducing stress? Is it exercising to get rid of cortisol? So all those things could test yes to help the adrenals get back functioning the way they were designed. Or thyroid. Thyroid's obviously a huge one, especially
Yeah.
with women.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah. So you've spent more than 30 years exploring techniques that bridge psychology, energy, and spirituality. What first led you down the path? Was there a personal turning point that sparked your search for deeper healing?
Yeah. So I was going into my senior year of college, and I was a Spanish and business major, and I had battled an eating disorder for a number of years at that point. And I'd taken a semester off, long story. My mom asked me if I wanted to go into a treatment center for the eating disorder, which of course brought me out of denial that I had an eating disorder. And so I said yes quickly. And I had just become a Christian at that time. So I was really chasing God, seeking God, trying to understand this thing of purpose and destiny and what was I here on this planet for. And so while I was in the treatment center, um, I felt this clear calling to counseling, right? Like I was born to do this. This is how I'm wired. This is what I was made to do. It was the first time I actually got to talk about my pain, and having grown up as an empath in a emotionally shut down family in Massachusetts, which I say is one of the meanest states in the country. So it was never safe. And other people from Massachusetts might agree with me. So um, I didn't know I could talk about my feelings. And so this was this great experience of, healing, beginning this healing journey. Went back to school, changed my major to psychology, moved to Atlanta after I graduated to go to graduate school. Well, somewhere in the process, I developed chronic fatigue, and I didn't have insurance. I knew someone else I knew with chronic fatigue. Doctors don't even know how to treat it. There's nothing they can do. So I was just trying to figure it out. Well, around the time I was just happened to be, my whole journey is about being in the right place at the right time, kind of divinely led, not even knowing that's what was going on. But I went to a friend who was a chiropractor to get an adjustment because I'd had a car accident. And I just happened to mention the chronic fatigue. He began to take out these little vials, hold them up to my body, and muscle test me. I had no idea what he was doing. He didn't explain it to me very well. But I was like, why am I strong? And then I'm weak. And then I'm weak again. And then I'm strong again. So I was a healthy skeptic. And so he goes, you have a high level of mercury toxicity in your body. Well, I had a mouthful of metal fillings. This was in 1990, 89, 90, somewhere in there. So back before they started doing composites. And I was like, well, what do I do? He says, you have to get your fillings replaced. There was one dentist in all of Atlanta that was replacing metal fillings with composites at the time, and I just happened to be friends with his personal office manager. So again,
Oh,
just very supernaturally led. So about the same time, my new best friend worked for was a sales rep for a vitamin company. So I began to be led into alternative medicine very organically, got my fillings replaced, symptoms went away, regained energy, all those things get tucked away little by little, right? Move to Florida, get married, get pregnant, don't have insurance, have my baby at a birthing center. My midwife hands me a book called A Shot in the Dark. The only thing I remember about the book is 80% of babies who died of SIDS had had a DPT shot within 48 hours, which again, if you do research factually, still remains as a statistic. I was like, okay, not vaccinating my kids. I know all these people who can help me, making sure I know how to keep them healthy, right? Had lots of resources at that point. No internet, just people that I knew. So that just happened repeatedly throughout my life. I could go on, but I won't take more time, where I just happened to fall into the right place and felt very divinely led to step into something that even nobody else was doing, or nobody that I knew was doing. But I knew that was the direction I was taking. Over that 30, 35 years, I have just put together these tools because I saw that they worked. They worked in my life. About 2010, again, being led back to the law of attraction and quantum physics principles. From everywhere I turned, everywhere I looked, it was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to pay attention to this, right? And
yeah.
then I realized as I researched it, it was a lot of the inner healing work I had learned through, the ministry protocols that I had learned. I'm like, this is the same principles that we do in inner healing. So a lot of Christians throw quantum stuff out. They say it's new age and they just throw it out. And I'm like, no, it's very aligned with our design. It's very aligned with scripture. And so a lot of my calling as a Christian is to reach out to the church and embrace these tools that work, that are very effective in our healing journey and health. And I would have to say that there's as many sick and dying people in the church as there are anywhere else. And so I feel like that really is my mission field, is to go back in the church and go, let me help you by
Yeah.
putting the tools back in that you've decided are witchcraft or new age or whatever, and give you a
Well,
different.
it's interesting that you're integrating the 2 because science and religion have been at odds, right? They're kind of like this. If you're a scientist and you believe in science, then you can't also be religious and believe in God, because they are somewhat conflicting. But I love that you're bringing it together and saying, "No, that's not the case."
It's absolutely the opposite. If you dig deep enough, you'll see that they're totally aligned in every arena that is actually true. Not all science is true, but in every arena that is actually true. So
Yeah, it's fascinating. So you often speak about understanding ourselves from a quantum energy perspective. For those hearing that term for the first time, how would you explain it in simple terms?
Uh, so the metaphor I like to use is that we are like hot air balloons and we were designed to soar. Neuroscience actually tells us our brains are wired for peace and joy. And so everything we do, which we call homeostasis, is an attempt to bring our brains back to it. Even addiction, even bad behaviors, they're the brain's best attempt to try to find that balance, but they're inauthentic, right? If you're going to do drugs, it puts you on a roller coaster. You don't get to stay at that place. So there's always a side effect when we do something inauthentically against our design. It doesn't work long term. So my teaching or my approach is like body, soul, and spirit. We want to take out the bad, which are like the sandbags on a hot air balloon weighing it down, and add in good hydrogen, getting that hot air balloon up higher. So we're going to take out traumas, trapped emotions, unprocessed emotions, toxins, things that we've added to plugins, bad chemicals, just everything environmental, everything emotional, where our process is working on cutting those sandbags off, which are weighing us down, and adding in the hot air or the good things like clean water, grounding, lifestyle changes, real nutrition, positive emotions, positive experiences, connecting with positive people, taking our thoughts captive and making positive thoughts. All of those things add to our frequency. So it's very quantifiable. And as we raise our vibration by cutting off sandbags and adding in hot air, we are going to naturally experience better things. The law of
Yeah.
attraction says like attracts like. So if I'm depressed and sad and worried and in fear, I'm going to attract negative things. If I'm moving towards this joyful, happy, life is good, I have hope for my future, I feel good, I'm changing my diet, I'm getting rid of bad foods and getting outside and touching the earth and experiencing nature, like all of these things, progress, not perfection, little by little, as we raise our vibration, we attract better things. It's science. It's a scientific principle. Like frequencies are drawn to each other. And so that really is, a lot of my education of people along the way is here's how we do the changes. But then the modality is designed to find those sandbags specifically that need to be cut off and find the remedies specifically that need to be added in because they're going to be different for people. But everybody can do this organically,
Yeah.
on either side.
I find what you just said is so true. The thing that I have the hardest time with some of the things you mentioned was when I have a negative thought, finding a way to turn that into a positive. Like that's always been like sometimes I find myself ruminating or I find myself obsessing over whatever that negative thought is. I oftentimes will have trouble shutting it off and
Yes.
saying, hey, you don't belong here. Let's replace this with something that's truer, right? And more positive. So I definitely need to work on some techniques personally, how to shut those voices because most of them aren't real, right? It's
Well, the
just these stories.
tips I would give you relating when I'm obsessing, which is what an eating disorder is, there's usually either something I'm feeling, and if I talk to somebody, I might get in touch with it. It might come out. Or it's triggering an unresolved trauma or past event that's stuck in my subconscious and I just activate it. I like to use, it's like a ball of energy vibrating. And
Yeah,
so I'm trying to resolve it here, but it's stuck in here somewhere. And
yeah.
so those would be usually the two things I find are what leads to the rumination is it's a fear of some sort. But if you can get to what is the root cause, if I have a tool to release it or reprogram it, sometimes you need another person in the process.
You find too, and maybe this is outside your realm of expertise, but I find that oftentimes my subconscious, I'll have awful dreams, and so
Okay.
a lot of these thoughts will come into my sleep state, right? So, and I find myself really having nightmares and screaming in the middle of the night, and my
Um,
husband would be like, "Wow, what's going on?" Like I had one, I don't know, not recently that I was being chased by, this man and yelled out, "Call the cops, call the cops." And so, yeah, it's great. My mind just doesn't stop. It's just
no, I
it
actually do dream interpretation as part of my protocols,
okay.
my toolbox, because we create our beliefs in states of heightened emotion. And our subconscious, the closest state we are is a theta state. And when we're dreaming, we're in theta. And so all of those subconscious beliefs are in a theta state. And so dreaming very often can unlock what some of those roots are if we know how to interpret the meaning of them. Usually dreams are metaphors, but they're in that theta state, which is where a lot of our beliefs are programmed.
So why do some people remember their dreams so vividly like I do? I can remember them almost every morning. I can remember what I dreamt about the night before. And yet my husband says he never dreams. So does that mean
Everybody dreams.
okay, does that mean that he's in a more relaxed state or a deeper sleep or so why would one
I
not
think a lot of it is practice.
okay.
Most people, like, let's say you wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, you remember the dream you just had and you remember it well. And you think, oh, I'll remember this in the morning. And you go right back to sleep, but you don't. And so even when we get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, we go from a theta to an alpha state and we're not fully present. We're not fully awake. Right now, you and I are in beta. Okay. And so
Yeah.
it's a lower brainwave frequency. Delta is deep sleep where not much is going on. So most people, if a lot of dream recall, one is because in your case, it sounds like there's usually some very strong emotions attached to the dream, and that helps you recall the dreams. I'm a lucid dreamer. I don't remember all of them, but I usually have the ability to actually resolve the conflict within the dream itself.
Uh, okay.
I don't know if that's a gift or if I just learned how to do that. I'm not sure. I can't tell you, but I can kind of control my dreams if I go in. Plus, I know now I'm like, okay, no, if you die in a dream, that's actually a good thing. So just let yourself die. No, don't try to fight it. Just go ahead and die in the dream, right?
I think I've burned to death. I've drowned.
No, those are all good things.
Okay, good. That's good because I
We
think
have a soul reaction to burning or dying, but death in a dream usually is something is majorly shifting or coming to an end in your
okay.
waking life. Now, there can be other reasons we have bad dreams that are more spiritual, and that would be more of a private conversation one-on-one. But in general, everybody has stressful dreams, negative dreams, painful dreams. And I think one of the reasons, and this isn't 100% true, but women have more neurons that connect their right and left brain than men do.
Okay.
So I think in general, more women remember their dreams because of the emotional component. Whereas men don't have as much that connects their emotional brain to their logical brain. And so they're less likely to remember a dream unless it was like a solution to some problem they were trying to solve. Okay. And
Well,
that there's exceptions to that. I'm not trying to stereotype, but the physiology is accurate about the neurons connecting right and left brain. So,
that's very interesting. So, what are some of the most common blocks you see in people, and what does releasing them actually look like in practice?
so almost everybody has bad beliefs about the opposite sex, and they either came from
Really?
parents, and I'm not being gender specific, but as a female, let's say I had a great dad, but let's say my dad was an alcoholic or abusive or distant, or disconnected. So because of the repetition of being in that environment, I'm going to subconsciously develop beliefs about men and vice versa for a boy and female. Okay, there's
Yeah.
across the board. Just when I start to stereotype, I get the exact thing in the opposite gender. So it's both. And so I carry that subconscious belief. Well, if that's what I believe, the law of attraction says I'm going to attract in my life what I believe to be true. And so I'm more, and then let's say hypothetically, my dad cheats on my mom. Okay. And then my first boyfriend, I date for a week at 12, and then he breaks up with me to ask Susie out. And then my first real boyfriend at 16 cheats on me. So I'm 21 years old and I decide I'm ready to fall in love and get married. Well, I'm not going to pick a cheater, but because I believe that men cheat, whether I acknowledge that or not, it's what has been programmed into me through trauma, and we create our beliefs in states of heightened emotion and repetition. So my belief is going to be men are not trustworthy, right?
Right.
Or you like have to keep, somehow I'm going to try to fix it, keep a tight leash on them. But I'm sending out signals that say I believe men are unfaithful. And so I'm more than likely going to either attract a man who's unfaithful in general, or because I'm sending out that message 24/7, he's going to start being tempted by other women. That's just science. It really is science. Psychology also calls it unfinished business. In ministry, we call it the law of bitter root judgment. There's multiple ways to see it. But at the end of the day, if I can change my belief that there's faithful men out there and I can get rid of the fear and trauma connected to infidelity and betrayal and rejection and not good enough, then I'm more likely to be able to attract a good guy. Now, this rule doesn't work 100% of the time. Sometimes you get girls with terrible childhoods who attract great guys. That's the exception to the rule, I'm telling you, statistically. So when we do the work to heal what we believe, and of course, because of relationships, it can be true with same-sex relationships. If I've always been stabbed in the back by girlfriends, I'm going to be less likely to get close to women friends because I don't trust them at their root
Right.
thing. I expect them to betray me or turn me. So this is across the board, but those are super, super common.
So when you say though you're sending out a signal, this is what I want to wrap my head around. So I may not be saying I don't trust men or I don't whatever, but internally I might think, yeah, this person's going to cheat on me because it's happened blah 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 so many times, right? So am I sending you the signal even though I don't know I'm sending out this signal because I'm vibrating that
That's right. We're communicating through frequency and vibration 24/7. and everything has a measurable vibration. There are devices out there that I can speak into or hold the handles, and it will read my whole energy field. So we have lots and lots of evidence that our voice carries the frequency of everything in us, and so does our touch. And so we're communicating 24/7, whether we recognize it or not. Tons and tons of experiments have been done to prove this, and lots of technology out there in the alternative medicine field where I can scan the body and get mineral deficiencies, emotional issues, and even some of them can go, you hate your mother, things like that. They are registered. It's testing the information, which is vibrational, that's coming from the subconscious, and you don't even know it. Sometimes we
Yeah.
get clues, right? We can catch ourselves thinking those thoughts. All men are cheaters, all men look at porn, or whatever. It just is. And
Yeah.
so we don't even know it's just a belief because we just think it's true. But we are in this, what we call a double bind. I don't want to marry a cheater or date a cheater, but all men, all women cheat. So you're in this constant battle internally between being alone or being with somebody who's going to cheat on me, which is better, which is worse.
Well, and like you said, since this is such a common theme, I want to explore a little bit further and just ask. So I just want to give a hypothetical. So say
Okay.
I have the belief that I don't trust my husband because I know he's going to cheat on me. All men cheat, whatever. And I say to myself, okay, stop. He hasn't given me evidence that he's going to cheat. I need to find a way to reframe this or like, so can I do the work on my own to change that vibration? Or is it something that I need to go to therapy and say, you know what, I have this inner belief. It's not going away. How do I,
So,
tools
so
can I,
again, and it's not like my toolbox is the only thing that works. But if you were my client, what I would do is go, let's ask your subconscious supercomputer, what are the roots of believing this?
okay.
Now, I forgot to mention generational. Generational information is handed down in our DNA. Your DNA is made up of energy. It's also a supercomputer. So if my dad cheated on my mom, if my grandpa cheated on his wife, that information was also passed down into my DNA. Now, it is energy. I can release it energetically and I can do it with intention. But what I found is we tend to need to identify exactly what it was. And very often it's more than one thing. And I gave that example earlier. Dad cheated on my mom. Well, that traumatized me. And what I like to say about trauma energy is if I got bit by a dog when I was 4 and I don't even remember it, I can be an adult and a little chihuahua coming up behind me and barking can cause me to jump. It's called an abreaction. Now, I'm going to consciously go, yeah, I could stomp on this chihuahua and, not do not harm animals. I love animals, but I could, right? This chihuahua cannot hurt me. But that part of me that got traumatized at 4 by that dog is still active. It's still, that trauma energy is still stuck in my body. With sexual abuse, same, like we found that doing body work like fascia blasting and other physical pelvic floor therapy, things like that, that the cells in that part of the body can store the memory. It's not just in our brain. So very often we can't just fix it up here. Your subconscious mind is exponentially stronger and more powerful than your conscious mind. So most of the time we need help. One of the things with my training process is that, and myself included, when I got trained in the first model that I then took off on called the emotion code, I was able to work on myself and release quantities and quantities of trapped emotions that were just everyday experiences. I wouldn't have gone to a therapist and go, this was super traumatic. I had a crush on somebody when I was 16.
Yeah.
And who talks about that in therapy? Like everybody has a crush, but that was big impacting on my soul, right? It was devastating and it created a belief of, I'm not going to be enough. The guy I like's not going to like me back. Another common belief, right? And so these things are impacted. They're programmed. And doing energy work, yes, identifying the emotion and feeling the emotion can be helpful, but we don't necessarily have to relive the experience if we can identify the event, because we had an energetic emotion attached to a thought that created a belief. And that belief is the thing that's glued into our subconscious. That 4-year-old believes dogs are dangerous.
Right.
You may not consciously believe dogs are dangerous, but that's the conclusion that was embedded in the subconscious of that 4-year-old. And so a dog barking initial response is going to be fear. And then even if you override the fear to go, I love dogs, but your subconscious still has that belief trapped inside. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes complete sense, and I love that because, I think back to my own childhood, and my father did cheat on my mother, and, it's funny because you can rationalize it and be like, "Well, that was their relationship. That was them.
Right.
That isn't me," right? You can sit there and, like you said, get caught in my head and be like, but it's interesting that you put it into, yes, that was a trauma for me because I saw it. I saw it all go on, right? My
Yeah.
mom's angst around it and her pain and all of that happened that you witness when you're little. And, yeah, and then so you carry that with you. And I think for me too, when I reflect now as an adult, I think he was, and I wrote a book recently, and I even said this in the book. He not only betrayed her, he betrayed us
He did.
because he was the man I looked to for leadership, for safety, for trust, right? And so I think when he betrayed her, it made me view him differently. And so
Yes.
now the father that I thought was omniscient, you know, was all of a sudden broken, right? And just yeah, so there's all this, there's a lot there. There's a lot there for sure.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes what I found, I did 20 years of therapy before I found this process of getting more with the energetic component of it. And I had to redo a lot of the things I did because they were still in there subconsciously. So I'm
Yeah.
not dismissing the value of talk therapy or whatever, but there's usually more to it. And for some reason, the energy model helps because I can't explain it, but it's like calling that trapped emotion or that trauma to the surface from your subconscious to your conscious. And then we release it even energetically. And I use a process on the governing meridian that is a magnet, but it's really a lot of it's intention. And when I first started doing this, I'm like, this is weird. It's just weird. But I all of a sudden could feel energy releasing from the body that I had never experienced before. I'm like, okay, this is legit. I knew that I was supposed to do it. It was one of those divine things. I'm like, I'm supposed to get trained in this emotion code thing. And when I did it, and it was really just about trapped emotions, but what I learned was what the revelation I got was I'd done all of this training in nutrition already, and I'd had all this addiction training. I had all of this alternative medicine education and ministry. And I'm like, oh, if the subconscious can tell us about trapped emotions, it can tell us everything. And so I began to compile my toolbox of what I already knew and then what I was learning on an ongoing basis. And then I went back after I got my master's in psychology to get a PhD in integrative medicine so that I had an even bigger toolbox with toxins and nutrition and all that. I'd already knew a lot of that. And there's so much out there online. You don't have to go back to school. But it just continued to grow my toolbox. But it's a
Well,
simple principle. The subconscious knows everything.
I do think a lot of people probably listen to this and think it's a lot of people do think it's woo woo, right? A little bit of like, okay. But I do also think there's a shift in society that people are really starting to understand energy work and
Yeah.
really wanting to explore it more.
And that's sort of why I really want to stay always grounded in science because I'm not I'm a strong Christian. I believe in the supernatural. I see a lot of that. That's a big part of my practice. But I also stay very connected to scientific and quantum principles in what I do so that people feel comfortable with like, there's an explanation for this because I want you to receive the education. But
Right.
shifting from, and then a lot of clients, we'll just go through a session and they'll go, I feel lighter. I feel like something lifted off of me. I feel like something left. And they're like, I go to talk therapy. I don't feel that way when I leave talk therapy. And I'm like, I can't explain it, but I believe it really is a revelation of tools that release stuck energy in the body, literally physically release it.
Well, I love that because I've been to talk therapy several times and
Yeah.
usually leave feeling exhausted and depressed. So, depending on the therapist, but
Right.
oftentimes I'm like, man, that was exhausting. Anyway, your work, let's go back to this. Your work beautifully weaves together biblical truth and quantum science. How do you help people reconcile those two worlds, especially those who've been taught that faith and science can't coexist? We mentioned this earlier.
Sure. there's so many scriptures. I would say the best thing for people to do is to read my book Thrive, because it really goes through well all those principles. It's a very long answer. I do have, if you're in the US, apparently I can't send them overseas, but I do have some free Kindle copies to give away. If people want to contact me directly, I will be happy to gift them a free Kindle version of Thrive. And I have found my first book in 2013, A Believer's Guide to the Law of Attraction. Thrive is a rewrite of that first book with more content. So it's the same book plus about double the content. And what I found is that a lot of Christians will contact me and they'll go, I read your book and it put into words what I felt like God was already showing me, but I didn't have like the Bible, the scripture to back it up. And so thank you. Thank you for putting it into words that make sense. So it really, in my opinion, I'm not the only one who's written biblically based books on quantum principles. There's other people who've done it too. But I believe it settles that conflict that people have, that we tend to be programmed as Christians, is if it's something that you don't know and nobody's told you about, it must not be of God. And so I think that, I'm not a big allopathic medicine fan in terms of treating disease or health. It's not designed for that. If my arm gets cut off, please take me to emergency room and get it sent back on, or emergency medicine for sure. But the allopathic model of symptom management is not aligned with the design of the body, is the body's attempt to heal. Like a fever is an attempt to heal the body. We don't want to get rid of the fever. It's a good thing. And so anyway, so for that reason, I feel like that same principle is people have been programmed to believe in allopathic medicine, even Christians, when it's actually more contrary to God's design of our body than quantum or natural medicine is. And I think it's just an education process that's growing, as you said, that people are more open to this. And my goal was to bridge that gap so that people would embrace these very powerful principles to stay healthy and thrive like we were designed to thrive. It's our design.
All right. So listeners, for more of an answer to the question, pick up Dr. Perry Braun's book, Thrive. So what does it mean to you? This is another one of your book, to live like a son, as you describe in your book. And how does that relate to knowing a loving Father God?
So my journey with God has been, I was not a Christian. My parents were agnostic, so I didn't have any religious programming. And so when I had an encounter with Christ at 21, it was real, and the Holy Spirit. And in 35 years of knowing God, my experience in his presence has 100% of the time been loving, like all encompassing love. Even when I felt like he was correcting me for something, or I don't even want to use the word discipline. Let's just use it correcting. Victim was always loving. And so much of religion and Christianity is punishment, performance. If you don't do it perfect, you're going to get punished. And I don't believe it's his character. And so I believe there's a lot of bad theology in Christianity and religious dogma that has caused blocks in people on a subconscious level to truly trusting that God is good or that he loves them. And then we go back to not having a good father, right? If I didn't have a good father, the model for me subconsciously was to mistrust the father. And so the book Living Like a Son, segues from Thrive to go, hey, if we can get our subconscious beliefs about our dad cleared up and cleaned up, and if we can get our religious beliefs that God is punishing, mean, a lot of the stuff that I don't believe he did that we're told he did, because it doesn't align with who Jesus says God is. I go, who did Jesus say God was? Let's go with that. And let's let that be our plumb line. And I know very few Christians who, honestly, if I'm being honest, more people are teaching what I'm teaching about sonship. But in my 35 years in the church, I know very few Christians who truly trust that God is a loving father. And I have all kinds of explanations for all the bad things that go on and the laws behind that. So the book asks a lot of questions. It also gives some answers as to possible other explanations other than God is punishing you. And so that's really my heart, because I believe our ultimate design is that if we believe in God, that part of living in peace and joy has to include believing that he's good and that we're not being punished for every little mistake we make, and that we get to live in love and we get to live loved. and it's unconditional. And that has to be experienced on a subconscious level, or it's the same issue we talked about before. We can't fix it up here. There's not enough scripture reading or prayer that's going to fix it.
Yeah.
It's got to be harmonized and aligned in that subconscious place.
I love that. So now let's move on to your nonprofit, the
Okay.
Thrive Holistic Healing Ministries. You support survivors of trafficking and ritual abuse. What inspired you to focus your energy and resources there?
So I feel like, again, I kind of got dragged kicking and screaming into working with this clientele. But the modality that I created seems to be very effective in working with people with dissociation, severe trauma, and loss of memories and amnesia, and them coming back, memories coming back, but also the healing journey, because it is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so little by little, I kind of finally conceded that I would work with these people. I always call them Jehovah Sneaky, because I would get these clients, and after working with me for a while, they would start having these memories of being trafficked or ritually abused or severe trauma. So I really, and it's a long haul, quite frankly. They have way more trauma than the average person does, and it was daily, and they don't remember half of it. So there's processes that need to happen, but I believe they can be fully healed and integrated. I believe that. And there's other ministers and ministries that do healing with them as well. So the nonprofit started as a hope that, to raise funds to be able to help support their therapy, because a lot of them have health issues that prohibit them from working or making enough money, or they're not high functioning. And so there's that. It's also designed to help support the tuition in my training for people who want to work with this clientele, and to give them a toolbox. My training takes 5 days, and there's all kinds of supports around it to do it with cheat sheets. So you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars and go to school for 20 years. So it's a quick cheat sheet led learning curve. And then the third thing that a lot of this has turned into is I support 2 orphanages, one in India, one in Africa, I bought them homes, feed them, pay for their school. And that's been amazing to see these highly vulnerable clientele, who are the ones who are likely to be sold into trafficking or kidnapped or abducted into trafficking, to give them a possibility of a life that is much better than being orphans, which they don't have much hope as orphans to do well.
I applaud you for doing this work. I've had a couple of guest interviews recently that specifically are focused on human trafficking and sex trafficking, and cannot believe the extent of the problem. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's more massive than I don't think people want to believe how.
It's a paradigm shift. Anything dark is a paradigm shift. But let me just say that the porn industry, from Playboy to snuff films, which is where they actually kill the person while they're filming them, that's a thing. And any deviancy in between is $150 billion a year industry. That means $150 billion are being spent on the consumer end for pornography, on regular pornography and the dark web. So
Wow.
if you just take that number, and you have to see the trading for the asset that a human being is to these people to be used for this industry, then that helps you understand how massive it is, and dark and underground.
Very dark, very underground, and people that you would least expect, I think, are involved in it. So it
Very
is,
often.
yeah, very often. So here at Joy of the Hang, we believe connection itself can be medicine. What role does human connection play in the healing process from your perspective?
So the definition of joy actually means being glad to be together. That's what it means. Joy is connecting. And so we connect with God, we connect with other people, we connect with our animals, we connect with our children. It is what joy is. Is connecting by definition.
Yeah, I know. It's so important, isn't it?
It is.
It is everything. So you've written 30 Days to Peace and Joy, which of course I love that title. What's one daily practice or mindset shift that anybody listening to right now can start to move forward to more joy and peace?
Just a quick one off the top of my head is gratitude. Just if you wake up every morning and you just think of 5 things in your life that you're grateful for, it can make a quick shift to pivot from whatever else may be going on in your life that's stressful to having a totally different focus, and then do the same before bed. What are 5 things I'm grateful for? Because a lot of times people don't sleep well because they're ruminating over problems. And so
Yeah.
very often that shift is a quick and tangible shift in your vibration or frequency.
The other thing I think helps too, I'll add to that, is being of service to others. I think the
Absolutely.
minute out of your own way and you can see somebody that's less fortunate than you are, that helps to shift that too
That's
as
very
well.
good. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, we like to end with a little fun. I told you about
Okay.
that. So it's time for the Joy of the Hang speed round. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Number one, what's your go-to ritual when you need to raise your vibration fast?
Gratitude and I wish listening to worship music for me.
Okay, I like that. If joy had a soundtrack, there you go. What song would be playing?
Well, I have a lot. I have a lot that genuinely make me joyful. Most of them are worship music, but some of the old beboppy songs kind of get your blood flowing and get you bopping. Sometimes those silly, meaningless, teenagery pop songs can just up your energy field. That's the best way to say it.
I love that. All right, one book. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. One book besides your own that changed the way you see the world.
I know most people would expect me to say the Bible, and that's a lifetime thing.
Okay.
So other than that, there's a number, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, I totally expect you to say the Bible, but you're right. That's a lifetime practice. What's something that instantly brings you peace no matter where you are?
So try to make this answer quick. Years ago, working on the peace and joy thing, releasing fear and worry, I had a very clear word from God audibly spoke to me, and he said, "You can't screw this up." And I knew that I spent so much of my time second guessing all my decisions, and so much of everything I did was based in fear, that to me, peace is the absence of fear. So if I'm in a state of worry or fear, it's usually going to be around a decision or a choice that I either just made or that I'm going to make. And I'll remind myself, I can't screw this up. In other words, everything is going to work out for me. And it does. I can't say that was always true, but when I changed my belief, everything started working out for me. So my little phrase in my head when I get in that lack of peace state is, oh, I can't screw this up.
I love that. I love that. That's great. I can't screw this up. If you could have a hang with anyone, living or past, who would it be and why?
Um, well, obviously, I would say Jesus.
He would be your number one.
I think everybody wants to hang with the real Jesus. If you don't know who he really is, then everybody would want to hang with him.
I hear he's coming.
That's what that's what they say.
Yeah.
Somebody who just really has had a life where they have overcome a lot and truly sentiently feel and operate at genuine, authentic peace and joy, not because they're got a lot of good programming, but because
Yeah.
they genuinely know that they're loved and they have that genuine place of peace. Anybody with that energy field, I want to hang with them.
I love that. That question reminds me, I'm going off on a little tangent, but when people ask me, I love to travel, and they ask me, well, what's the favorite place that you've ever been to? And I can never, ever say that because I'm like, every place I go to brings me joy for different reasons. I can
Yes.
never, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can't say that I liked one over the other because honestly, I find something exciting and interesting no matter where I go. Right. So,
My general answer to that is the Caribbean because of the water.
okay. Yeah,
Anywhere in
that
the
makes
Caribbean makes me happy, so
That makes sense. I love it all though. There's things I really love about being in the mountains. There's
yeah.
things I love about being in a cold climate. There's things I love about being, I like to explore different areas. I don't like to go to the same place twice. I
Well,
just like
you
to.
live on the beach near
I live on the
the
water. Yeah,
beautiful color water that I'm talking about, so, yeah,
I
you
do.
have
And
that
that
in your
definitely,
backyard.
and I'm a Pisces, so it definitely feeds my soul. As a matter of fact, are you really? That's so funny. I went and walked on the beach this morning because I just was like, I just need to feel and I don't do that very often, but I'm like, I just need to feel my feet in the sand this morning
Yes,
and be in the
that's it. I'm
breeze.
coming to visit.
Hey, I hope I get to meet you in person then when
Yeah,
you
that'd be
come.
awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to close. Thank you for sharing your light and wisdom with us today. You remind us that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, it's about returning to who we are,
Yes.
whole, loved, and connected. Before we close, here's this week's joyful act. So, listeners, take 5 quiet minutes today to place a hand over your heart and simply ask, what is blocking my joy? Then listen, not with your mind, but with your spirit. Whatever arises, give it grace. Awareness is always the first step toward freedom. And you could connect with Dr. Robin Braun and learn more about her trainings, books, strategies.com. Okay. Thank you for correcting that.
We didn't talk about that.
Excellent. Until next time, hang on to joy and hang in with each other. Thank you, Dr. Robin.
It's been
Appreciate
great.
you.